to give up on it yet. And it is always too soon to surrender to cynicism. Bring your doubt, your skepticism, your downright confusion, even your bitterness, but in the midst of all of these, in the center, wrap your tender fingers around that still bright thread of hope. Feel in your heart that still steady hunger for something more. The vision we glimpse every day in the rising sun across the foothills, the light that spreads across the face of the one we love, the look of knowing all there is to know and still loving life, loving us just as it is, just as we are. For this hour we come to celebrate, to praise, to give thanks, to refuse to give up, to steady ourselves, keepers of hope, brave builders of this still possible world. Come and let us worship together. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, We Give Thanks. It is not number 360, I see. It is number 1010 in your teal hymnals if you want to join there. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. One more time. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, this precious day. Gathered here, those far away, this time we share love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. And I invite you to remain risen as we light our chalice and then say our covenant words together.
We light our chalice as a beacon of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we strengthen one another and open our hearts to compassion and generosity. In the gentle and authentic connection we share, we cultivate a joyful and simple tenderness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we honor and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this sacred time together that sustains us. Now our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, thus do we covenant. La doctrina de esta iglesia es el amor. La búsqueda de la verdad es su sacramento y el servicio es su oración. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad, servir a la humanidad en comunión. Este es nuestro pacto. Good morning. Welcome. We are happy to have you here in person and online. This morning, let us remember the land that we stand on is the traditional land of the Tongva, Kizh, Chumash, and Tatavian peoples, past and present. This land remains part of their enduring identity and heritage. We recognize that these tribes are still here, and we are committed to honoring their stories, culture, and community. Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church is named after Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we are a diverse religious community that has been a part of the West Valley for almost 70 years. I'm Melissa Marote, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm honored to serve as your worship associate this morning. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your phones, and thank you so much for wearing your mask because this is cold and flu season still. This morning, our service is about active hope, which is not the sort of hope where you hope something will just work out. It's the sort of hope that arises out of taking actions to help make what you hope for manifest. As a licensed professional clinical counselor, one of the most important things I do when I see a client for the first time is to acknowledge the importance of taking steps. You are so brave, I tell them. It takes a lot of courage to open up and ask for help. You took the effort to make the time for yourself. You are carving out this time for your own healing and growth. You. And it's true. By the time they meet with me, they've already taken a big step towards change, transformation, towards making what they hope for real. We welcome all of you to our service and hope that here at Emerson, you'll feel encouraged to create change, to lift others up, and celebrate in the happiness and successes that we see in our fellow humans. We also hope that through being a part of this community, you gain comfort through connection. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you joining us for the first or second time. We are glad you are here. Please sign our guest book in the foyer or online so that we can share more information about upcoming events and you can strengthen your connections. After our service today, you are all invited to join us after the service for a coffee hour, and there's also a coffee hour online. And hopefully you can stay so we can get to know each other better. Now let's just take a few moments to greet our neighbors in the spirit of welcome. It's not this?
I'll invite you up.
Oh, okay.
The concept of active hope comes from the work of the Buddhist scholar, ecologist, and activist Joanna Macy, who I've led a workshop based on her work before here at Emerson. I know some of you participated and have grounded several services in her work. It's probably a name that many of you have heard, and yet I think it's so important. And so this morning, our service is grounded in that work that she helped develop, which is known as the work that reconnects, which are essentially practices to help ground us so that we can better participate in the healing of our world. So often when we want to make a difference, want to make a change, we face these challenges, particularly, feelings of fear and anger, sadness, powerlessness. And so this work helps ground us to get through that. And so the work that reconnects has 4 stages that go, it's in a spiral, illustrated here, I think, beautifully with this dandelion, always grounding in gratitude first, and then moving into honoring our pain for the world, seeing that as important to being able to show up for the world's healing. Seeing with new eyes, or sometimes called seeing with ancient eyes, opening up different ways of looking at the world and understanding things. And then finally going forth, which is taking what we have learned and then bringing it out into the world. And it's called a spiral because you keep repeating it, but it's never the same each time. And so this morning, our service is, roughly guided by this spiral of the 4 stages of the work that reconnects. And the first one, you may have already noticed, we started by grounding ourselves in gratitude. And the importance of gratitude, I think we can see it in the fact that gratitude is one of the founding practices or central practices of almost every religious and spiritual tradition, of gratitude for the gift of life. And I think many of us easily take this gift of life for granted, which is perhaps, I think, why so many spiritual paths have a practice of thanksgiving. And in times of turmoil and danger, gratitude can help to steady us and ground us. Among the Haudenosaunee people of Turtle Island, what we know as North America, in particular, the Haudenosaunee see gratitude as a sacred duty. At the beginning of virtually every meeting or ceremony, they offer thanks and greeting. The words that come before all else, as it is called, are offered to all that gives life. From our eldest brother, the sun, to water, winds, plants, animals, and grandmother moon. And so to help ground us a little more in gratitude, I'm going to invite Melissa up to lead us in a gratitude meditation.
Let's take a moment to ground ourselves. I invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take in a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you continue to breathe, ask your heart, what or who are you grateful for? Is there someone who is caring for you, inspiring you, comforting you, who you are grateful for? Hold that person, those people. See them. Hold them in the gratitude that you feel. Breathe in that feeling of gratitude. Perhaps give it a color, a healing lavender, a soft pink. Breathe in this color and have it fill your entire body. And as you breathe out, imagine that colored gratitude filling this space or your home with love and gratitude. Take a few more slow breaths And as you do so, think about anything about this day, anything that's happened, anything that you're looking forward to. Hold your attention to what you are grateful for from this day. Anything that's present to you right now. I'm giving thanks for the sunshine after so much needed rain. Just hold that gratitude and that attention in your heart. Take a few more breaths and imagine opening your heart space, asking if there's anything else you're grateful for. Your friends, community, faith, connections that you appreciate and feel. Breathe in that gratitude. It's okay if some of our relationships are mixed with other emotions besides gratitude. Be present to that. Breathe it in. As you continue to breathe, take a moment to hold your attention, all these connections, all these relationships, all these gifts that you are grateful for. Bring them to your attention again together. Breathe in the gratitude you feel. Breathe out gratitude across those connections. And as you are ready, you can bring your attention back to this time, to your body, to each other, gathered in meditation. And as we close, I invite you to offer a word in silence or spoken out loud, a word of gratitude for these gifts. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.
Blessed be.
So, our story this morning is called The Woodcutter's Daughter and the Vanishing Forest. It's one that our former director of religious education, Emma McHale, and I wrote together. And so I am very much enjoyed it then. I'm glad to bring it back many years later. And Melissa's going to help me tell it.
Once there was an island. People had lived on this island for thousands of years. They had built houses that had grown into a village. They grew food in gardens that turned into farms. They caught fish in the ocean, and everyone in the village had a job to do to keep things running smoothly. One little girl was the daughter of a woodcutter, and every day she watched her father leave their home and head towards the forest with his axe over his shoulder to chop down trees for buildings and firewood. And one day he decided she was old enough to go with him.
My father taught me how to cut down trees, and it's time I taught you. It's an honest day's work. It puts food on the table, and lumber and firewood are things that everyone needs. Business is good. She had always believed her father that cutting down trees was a good business, and she wanted to be good at it too. So when they arrived at the other side of the island and she saw the swaths of tree stumps stretching across the acres of land, she was proud of how hard he worked for his family and his village. But she was also really good at math, and by mid-afternoon, she was confused.
Father, the village is growing faster than the trees. If we keep cutting the forest down at this rate, in a few years, all the trees will be gone. What are we going to do?
Well, we're not going to cut down the whole forest. That's impossible. If there was a real danger of that, someone would have told us by now, right? I'm not worried about the forest. I'm just doing my job and taking care of my family.
For the first time, she wasn't sure whether or not her father was right. So the next day, she went to the village to ask the carpenter.
Running out of trees? Now where would you get a silly idea like that? So silly.
Measurable scientific observation?
Sounds like a hoax. You're just trying to ruin my business. More buildings is a sign that the village is doing good. And if the village grows and the forest shrinks, then people are willing to pay even more for their wood, and business will be even better. That's good for my family and yours. Everybody wins. Believe me.
She did not believe him. So she went and talked to the farmers and the fishers and the crafters, and then the villagers began to talk to each other. Some people thought she was overreacting, but some people began to get worried. Would they run out of trees? Would their children's children ever see the forest? What would they build houses from? How would they build fires to keep warm and cook food? Was this the end of their village? Time passed, and people wondered and worried, and some grew more angry, and some grew more afraid. The carpenter would tell anyone who worked for him,
Anyone who thinks we're going to run out of trees is a moron, believe me. We're going to keep building, and we're going to build huge houses, beautiful houses, the best houses. You don't like it? You can get out. Go find your own island.
But on the other side of the village, there were people so afraid of killing the forest, so sad and scared for the future. They stopped repairing their houses. They stopped building cook fires. They ate cold food and sat alone in the dark, shivering, looking to the edge of the trees and seeing the end of their world. It was a scary time. Until one day, the daughter of the woodcutter met the son of the carpenter playing in the sand on the beach.
I'm going to build houses like my dad when I grow up. Are you going to be a woodcutter like your dad?
I don't know. No, I don't want to cut down any trees.
But what else would we build houses out of? They both thought hard. The boy looked up and down the beach. Then he scooped up a handful of mud, and it oozed through his fingers. He added some sand and mashed it together, but it was still too sloppy. She watched him for a moment and then ran up the slope to a patch of dry grass and grabbed a fistful and pressed it into his muddy hands. Together they mashed and mixed and kneaded the mud, sand, and grass together until it was all packed and tight, and they squeezed it into a nice rectangle and set it in the sun to dry. They had made an adobe brick.
Soon the other children playing on the beach saw what they were doing, and they wanted to make bricks too. They worked together, they asked questions, they tried out different recipes to see what would make them the strongest, sturdiest bricks, and they placed them next in neat rows to dry in the sun. As night fell, parents came down to the water's edge to call their children home for dinner, and they saw rows and rows of bricks along the beach. The woodcutter and the carpenter approached, and their children called out excitedly, Daddy, come here, you gotta see this. Look what we made. We could build houses out of these bricks instead of wood, and you and the other woodcutters could make bricks instead of chopping down trees.
Ugh, who wants to live in a house made of mud? Not me.
But I want to live on the island that still has a forest.
I do too. It's more complicated than that, son. That would use less wood, it's really complicated. Can you build a fire out of bricks? People need fire. But what if we shared a fire? That would use less wood, and then we could all cook and eat together. The woodcutter's daughter ran to the shore and brought back a clump of dried seaweed.
We could burn this too, to save even more wood.
Now, listen, kid, I've worked my whole life to build a business based on wood, and I'm not just going to give it up. You had a business based on woodcutters, said the woodcutter, but I quit. I'm a brickmaker now.
The carpenter stared in disbelief as the children began gathering a circle of stones to make a fire pit. The other adults from the village had heard everything, and they looked at each other, and some smiled a little nervously. Some looked as shocked as the carpenter. Adobe houses and shared cook fires were not normal. But among the many things that the children are really good at, the village's children were really good at reminding adults that normal is overrated and that being willing to change is how we grow.
So I want to tell you that this story ends with the entire village converting to sustainable energy sources and renewable building materials and a fair cooperative economy. But I don't know yet if that's how this story ends, because the story is not over. We are on that island too, as called a metaphor. But I hope that all of you are the kind of people who are willing to pick up a handful of mud, get yourselves dirty, try new things, be willing to listen, and be willing to change. I think that's who we are. And now I invite you to join me in saying our Unitarian Universalist affirmation. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands.
One of the ways we live out our Unitarian Universalist values of generosity is by sharing half our offering with local organizations whose work furthers our mission. This month, we share our offering with Haven Hills, which provides shelter and a wide range of services and resources to help survivors of domestic violence find the strength within themselves to break the cycle of abuse and build a new, productive, and joyful life for themselves and their children. Donations can be made at donate.emersonuuc.org or using the Breeze CHMS mobile app and selecting Sunday Offering. If you're writing a check, please make checks payable to Emerson UU Church and write "Share the Plate" in the memo. If you would like to make a payment on a pledge, please write "Pledge" in the memo instead. Our offerings will now be gratefully received.
The second stage of the work that reconnects is honoring our pain for the world. One of the aspects of being alive at this time is that many of us are caught between two fears. The fear that if we do nothing, our world will fall into crisis, and the fear of acknowledging how bad things are because of the fear that it brings up, that it might just continue to spiral. Now, facing our grief and our despair doesn't make it disappear, but it allows us to place it in context so that we can deal with it. The thing is, the more we shy away from something that's difficult, the less confident we become that we can actually deal with it. And so it is by experiencing, by touching on that grief, we know we can move through it. When you touch the bottom of that pit of despair, you know that that you cannot go any deeper, and it is something that one can come out of. And so as we open ourselves up to the flow of our emotional experiences, despair, sadness, guilt, fury, and fear, we often find a weight being lifted from us. We might actually even feel strengthened by touching into that. And so I'm going to invite you to join me in singing Gonna Let Life Move Me. It's a call and response song. Gonna let life move me.
Gonna let life move me.
I'm gonna let life stir me deep.
Gonna let life stir me deep.
I'm gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep.
Gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep.
I'm gonna laugh all my laughter. Gonna laugh all my laughter. I'm gonna cry all my tears. Gonna cry all my tears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. And so I want to invite you now, as you feel moved, to speak aloud into this space a sorrow that is on your heart this morning, a fear that is on your heart this morning. Perhaps it is anger. It could be something for the wider world. It could be something in the wider world. Or perhaps there's something personal that weighs on your heart. So I invite you to speak aloud into the space. If you're joining us on Zoom, I invite you to type it into the chat. If it is more than a couple words, that is okay. If it is a sentence or two, feel free to say it aloud, to lift it up into this space.
Memory of Keith Early.
Sheila.
2024 election.
For the people living through violence around the world. Feel free to keep it coming, it's okay.
Environmental degradation.
The people affected by the floods. And the people living in drought.
People of gossip.
The unhoused.
those struggling with addiction and those who love them who also struggle. Now, I just want to name that the concerns that you've all shared extend beyond your own personal ego, beyond your own individual needs and wants. And I think that says something very important about who and what you are. It says you're capable of suffering with your world. And that capable of suffering with is literally the definition of compassion, a central virtue in every spiritual tradition. It says you are a compassionate being. Another word for that in Buddhism, for instance, is bodhisattva. So don't apologize for tears you shed or the rage you feel about what is happening to other beings and to our own living world. Your tears and your rage are just the manifestation of your belonging to it all. I'm gonna let life move me. Gonna let life move me. I'm gonna let life stir me deep. Gonna let life stir me deep. I'm gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep. Gonna let life wake me from an ancient sleep. Gonna laugh all my laughter. Gonna laugh all my laughter. Gonna cry all my tears. Gonna cry all my tears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Gonna love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. I invite you now to join me in a meditation on the web of life. One of the things about the spiral of the work that reconnects is within every aspect of the spiral, you can find the spiral within it. And so you may notice that even as we are in one part, we are still experiencing the whole of the spiral. Feel your breathing in your lungs, abdomen, how it glides in and out. The oxygen ignites each cell, stirs it awake as it burns in the metabolism of life. Extend your awareness deep within to feel that energy. It is all around you, too, sustaining all of the bodies in this room, weaving us into the web of life. Imagine you can see the interlacing currents like threads of light. See how they connect us and extend beyond this room, this moment, formed by countless relationships, woven of the work and food, the laughter and tears you've shared with others. They shape who you are. Sense those interwoven threads. Rest into them. The web sustains your bone and blood and skin, concocted so intricately out of the food you have eaten, out of grains, vegetables, fruit, nuts. the soil that yields the grain for your bread, the boughs of the tree that bear apples for you, the hands that plow, sow, reap, gather. They all are of your body now. Back through time, this web extends back through countless generations. Through numberless ancestors, we share. All the way back to those with gills and wings. For it is of star stuff evolving that we all are made in the flowing of time. There is pain, too, coming in along the strands of the web. A loved one with cancer. An oil spill coating the beach. Mother weeping for her lost children, lost to violence. Do not shut them out. They live in the web of this planet time. Open to these sorrows. Breathe them in so that the channel may stay open for the flow of energy and life and change. If we block the pain, we block the joy as well. There is power in the flowing of this fluid net. Love that has enriched us, and love that we give. Feel the caring and love that flow through you. Through that vast web of all forms arose. Intelligence arose. It shaped you as it shaped the mockingbird and the deep diving trout. You are of it. Of it, even to the terrors we've unleashed now. Open to it all. Unafraid. Relaxed. Alert. We are the universe, knowing itself. To all our siblings, we open now in this time of great hardship. We go now through a dark place, but we do not go alone. And we do not go without our own timeless knowledge of the dark. We come from the darkness. It is behind our eyes. And we will look into it together until the dark itself is clear and home. There is nowhere you can go where you are not held in the web that sustains us all. Still sensing these connections through time and space, we stir and stretch now. Open our eyes. Please join me in singing Ancient Mother. And it looks like we are missing a slide for Ancient Mother. It's a simple song. It's 1069 in your teal hymnal. And Ancient Mother, Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Sing that again. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. One more time. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. The third stage of the work that reconnects is seeing with new eyes, or sometimes seeing with ancient eyes, reminding us that sometimes there is deep wisdom that our ancestors know that so many of us have forgotten, and we would do well to tap into again. Feeling ourselves held by the web of life, as we did in that meditation, can be powerful, a reminder that we are connected, that we are part of it all. It also invites us to act if we recognize that we are all connected, that everyone's salvation, everyone's well-being is tied up together. One of the things that Joanna Macy talks about, one of her, I think, most profound teachings, is that we have three different stories of our time. And so the first story is the Industrial Growth Society, also known as business as usual. That's the society that we daily operate in, that is built on consumption of goods and often exploitation of people and the planet in search for ever more growth, and particularly growth in profit, not necessarily for all. It's not a society that's interested in growth in health or well-being or happiness or connection. Growth in terms of money is what it values. But business as usual, when you can't keep extracting endlessly on a finite planet. And so that has led to the second story, which is the great unraveling, which is the story of things falling apart. And it takes many different forms. It is global warming and ecological collapse. It is also wars and political instability. It is gross inequality. It is lack of access to health care. It is the loss of trust. All of these things are aspects of the great unraveling, of the threads of society unraveling together. And the third story is the great turning. And so the great turning is taking those tattered threads and sweeping them up into something else, sweeping them up into creating a life-sustaining society that offers an alternative to business as usual. And this takes place through different practices, holding actions, structural change, shifts in consciousness. All of these pieces are important aspects of the great turning towards that life-sustaining society. And you can see those three stories active in the story you heard this morning. To the carpenter and the woodcutter, everything was just fine. We just keep cutting down trees and building houses because that's the way things are done, right? And as we start to run out of trees, well, the invisible hand of the marketplace will magically fix it by making them more expensive. And in their mind, that's a good thing because then they can make more money. They just wanted to carry on with business as usual and ignore the fact that they couldn't keep growing infinitely on an island with finite resources. Then, when the woodcutter's daughter pointed out that the islanders were chopping down trees much faster than they were growing back, many of the islanders realized they were heading for crisis, but their response wasn't particularly helpful either. It was to just sit there in that despair of the great unraveling, just retreating to their cold, dark huts and fearfully waiting for everything to fall apart. But the kids of the island realized that they didn't want to put their energy into continuing business as usual, nor did they want to spend their time simply bemoaning the sorry state of their island. And so they came up with solutions that allowed their village to live more sustainably. And by sharing fire and cooking meals together, they were also increasing their sense of community. The thing about these three stories is that they're all true, and they're all happening right now. And so the question becomes, it's not about which story is real, it becomes which story do we want to put our energy behind? Which one do we want to put our energy towards? And it can be hard to do this work because it's hard to imagine what that life-sustaining society might look like. And so opening up the way we perceive things, seeing with new eyes, is really important. One of my favorite practices that comes out of this work is the 7 generations exercise, where people imagine they are talking to their descendant 7 generations into the future. And the future being asks their ancestor what it was like to live through this time, what steps they took part to be part of the Great Turning, and where they found the strength and resilience to make it through. And so the participant is sharing from their own perspective now, at this time, imagining that we have made it through and what it looked like. And it's an incredibly powerful exercise that just isn't suited to a worship service. And so I wanted to share with you a video, this similar act of imagination. It's called Message from the Future. It's actually number 2. I had shown the first one years ago. And it was a video developed in October 2020 during the height of the pandemic. During the height of the pandemic and a moment of great political upheaval and social upheaval. And the video reflects that time. And it is one possible vision of the future. And you may not resonate with everything in this video. You may even think it's too optimistic or utopian, but we need to be able to dream about the world we want to live in. Whoops. Can you click on the video to start it? Thank you.
Looking back, it's hard to believe that we've rebuilt our community from the ground up with our own hands. The first seeds were planted way back in the terror and tenderness of the pandemic. And then change bloomed in the streets, in the fire and struggle of the uprisings. Around here, we'll never forget the day that the last prisoners were released, walking out into the arms of their loved ones. The easy part was finding work. The Community Care Corps was always looking for people in those days, whether for universal family care, burying border walls, or green new public housing, going up one pod at a time. Yep, it was a good time for busy hands.
It started in the first great pause, when the smog cleared and the rich fled the cities. When poverty dropped its disguise and racist inequality drew the map of the disease. As the roar of the traffic faded, we arose to birdsong and ambulance sirens. The virus showed us what was truly essential. And we learned again and again that so many of us doing essential work were being treated as sacrificial. From nursing homes to detention facilities, meatpacking plants and fulfillment centers, the virus exposed the cruelty of these warehouses of efficiency and profit. Meanwhile, dinosaurs roamed the halls of power, bellowing that more sacrifice was needed. But every time they cranked up that rusty old machine called economic growth, the cloud of sickness and death grew.
And we couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe from the asthma in our polluted communities, from the smoke of those fires. We couldn't breathe with a knee on our necks, in the clouds of tear gas as we shouted, "Black Lives Matter." And that is how the virus changed everything. We finally understood that we couldn't keep patching up the same broken systems. We had to build something new. What was needed was a spark. That spark was us. After months of organizing, the viral rent strike was like a starting gun. Then came the essential workers' strike. Delivery drivers, street cleaners, and farm workers got together and said, "Enough." This time, people didn't just clap from their balconies. We flooded into the streets to join together. One of the leaders was Luciela, a young food courier. When a police bullet stole her life, the crowds exploded in size and then exploded again, spreading across borders like a counter-virus. The sparks look different in every country as the wildfire strikes leapt across borders. Economies ground to a halt, this time blockaded by workers. We lost too many young heroes as states brought out the iron fist. But it was no match for the raised fist of solidarity. Soon, authoritarian rulers started to topple like statues, and new governments were suddenly nervous about ignoring the streets. We joined hands and pushed further, launching the years of repair.
The first step was rebuilding the economy around the core of essential work: food and farming, care for young and old, public health. Not to mention the essential labor of the more than human world, the winged pollinators, the leafy oxygen makers. The Full Employment Act made the new priorities clear, and there was a wave of new worker cooperatives in everything from mental health support to public art and tree planting. Many bosses were made redundant. Our information ecology needed tending too, and so we built a digital commons, vaccinated it against surveillance, and built up our herd immunity to disinformation. Fossil fuels were running on fumes by that point, so we harnessed their final profits to clean up their messes. Whatever we could, we did outdoors. School, theatre, celebrating. At first because it was safer, then because we realised it made us happier. Nobody talked about missing shopping. Anyway, the right to repair movement meant that a lot of stuff got fixed rather than thrown away and replaced. With life moving at a slower pace, we finally had time to look back. And we began the most important repair of all: repairing relationships. In colonial countries like the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, those were hard conversations. But truth and reparations commissions helped some of us face the truth about the violent conquests of the past and how they shaped our world. That guided where we repaired and how. It turned out that once we fully funded schools and housing and healthcare, we didn't need those bloated budgets for policing, prisons, and war. And ultimately, the flow of money on planet Earth had to be reversed. So the North finally started paying its debts, and the South finally stopped.
Around here, the Land Back program began the historic process of returning some of the stolen land to indigenous jurisdiction. In the process, we remembered how taking care of the earth lays the ground for taking care of each other. Within just a few years, we could see the bottom of the river again, and it was safe to drink and fish in its waters. Things aren't perfect, of course. Between mutating viruses and our warming world, there's always new storms headed our way. But when they come, we're ready. With our networks of nurses and neighbors, our small farms and big forests, our systems of care and repair. No one is sacrificed. Everyone is essential.
Having that compelling vision to guide us, inspire us as we work towards making it real is incredibly important. But I also want to be aware that the great turning is already underway. That aspects of that world that we want to create, that life-sustaining society, are already here. Many of the things in that video already exist, maybe in small pieces. And so part of the work is to spread them and to make them wider. And so now I want to invite our choir up to sing our anthem, another song of vision for the world we dream of. the last stage of the work that reconnects is going forth. And that is taking all that we have gained and the other aspects and making them and going out to do something to make that world we dream of manifest, to play our part, whatever it may be, in the great turning. And so, I'm going to invite you to just think about, reflect on, what is one action that you can take, one action that you can commit to today, that you can take action on by tomorrow, some action. I invite you to just think about that and make a promise to yourself. There's no right answer. You know what your gifts are. You know what you can contribute. In that spirit, I want to offer you our closing reading, Choose to Bless the World by Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gifts of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these hands can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless this world. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith. The life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable grace, beauty, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting. That which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. I invite you to rise in body and spirit and join in singing our closing hymn. I think we're just going to sing the first verse in the interest of time. It's Building a New Way. It's number 1017 in your teal hymnal. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. As our service comes to a close, I invite you to reach out, to join a hand, to bump elbows, touch a shoulder, if you feel comfortable, to make a connection. To those of you joining us on Zoom, I invite you to send your energy out to us as we send it back to you. My dear spiritual companions, we find that so many aspects of our world are in a mess right now. We are overcome by the enormity of the work that lies in front of us. May we take heart in knowing that we are not alone. May we take strength in knowing that the most important thing we can do now is to be present, to be present and to do only what we are here to do, and not everything that needs to be done. May we find an active hope in facing our anger and grief, and then living in gratitude and beauty as we do whatever it is that we must do to love this world ever more deeply. May we know joy in being together. Blessed be, Ashe, Amen. And if you're thinking about an action for going forth and something to do, we have our environmental justice ministry meeting today at noon here in the sanctuary. So if you are being called, that is one way to plug in. Right.